Hi, this is Brett Ingram, entrepreneur and award-winning product creator, and today I want to share with you how our experiences shape our reality and the incredible impact that that has on our lives. We all have certain beliefs about things. Now, they can be simple and harmless superstitions, things like, oh, if you walk under a ladder, you'll have 7 years of bad luck, or if you break a mirror, or maybe come across a black cat. You step on a crack, you break your mother's back kind of thing. And most of those aren't truly beliefs as much as they are just sort of superstitions. Nobody really believes them, but some people do. And the fact is, those are simple beliefs, and they're just little superstitions that aren't going to probably have a big impact on your life. But we can also have huge life impacting beliefs as well. Things like, COVID is a hoax, or you need connections to be successful, or the flip side of that, if you work hard, you can achieve anything. So those are diametrically opposed beliefs right there, and yet they have a profound impact on our lives and even on what we would attempt, let alone what we would accomplish. But here's the thing about it. Beliefs may or may not be true or accurate, but we believe them anyway. And that's a really significant point because we take them as truths in our own lives and oftentimes do it blindly without questioning them, when in fact, a lot of them are not even based in reality and they don't even have any empirical or factual basis. So some beliefs that we have can be really helpful and they can improve our lives. So ones that are even, crazy, if they're positive and they're empowering, great. We want to keep those anyway because look at what they're going to do for us, right? But others can prevent us from becoming what we could be. And, that's where things get very limiting. And it's almost like going through your life with, a ball and chain around your ankle because you're being weighed down by these things that are preventing us from even, attempting things, let alone accomplishing things. And we get our beliefs from what we're exposed to. So it can be things like our parents, right? If our parents are talking about a certain thing, oftentimes, especially as kids, we incorporate their same beliefs. You see this with political views, you see this with religion, you see this with a variety of other things, but those are just the big ones. Obviously, the same thing is true for the way we view other people, the way we view the world, the way we view opportunity, and what we think our horizons are. A lot of that comes from what our parents say and do and think and believe and share with us, right? Or talk about in front of us. They have a major impact in our lives. We spend a lot of time with them. They're very influential. But it can also be, people that we respect their beliefs or people that are in positions of power, right? So if we're exposed to people that we respect and then we find that they believe a certain thing, then oftentimes that will affect our beliefs. Again, the easy low-hanging fruit here is politics. If you look at political figures on either side of the aisle, if you're in the United States or whatever country you live in, and you look at political figures, there are people that follow them regardless of what they say or do and believe everything that they say. And so, it's somebody that they respect, it's somebody that they believe in, and so they take and they follow those same beliefs. And it goes beyond that. I mean, it could be, that's where the whole term and the whole idea and concept of influencer came from in social media. The idea is this person is telling you to do things or telling you what they like and don't like, and other people are following along. And oftentimes it's, there's nothing based in any sort of empirical fact. It's somebody's opinion, it's somebody's idea. And so all of a sudden everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon with it. And so it's important to understand not only what our beliefs are and how they impact us, but also where we get them from. So we can be critical about it, we can be analytical about it, we can see what actually, is impacting us in which ways. And the other place we get our beliefs is from what we experience in our daily lives. I've never been a huge believer. There aren't a lot of people that in my life that I take at face value in terms of everything they say. There's very few people I agree with every single thing that they say. I may really respect somebody, but if they say something I disagree with it. I don't go all in because I like the person and say everything they say or do, I believe it. So depending on how you view that or not, some people feel that way, and some other people will say, well, because I like or trust this person, I'm all in on every single thing that they have to say. So, an interesting thing is from our own experiential, journeys through life, we develop these beliefs as well. One of mine that's really close to home is, I've been entrepreneurial since I was a little boy. I had lemonade stands and I had paper routes, and I was always trying to earn money and look for ways to generate more money. And I didn't grow up poor, but I certainly didn't grow up rich. I grew up very middle class. We had a small house, family of 6, and we were comfortable. We had all of our basic needs met, but we didn't have a lot extra. And we did a lot of camping trips for family vacations and stuff like that, because obviously we couldn't afford anything big or more expensive or lavish. And I remember, from when I was young, my father had worked for one of the insurance companies in the Hartford, Connecticut area. And that was like the insurance capital of the world at the time. And, he had sort of gotten the job there when the idea in business and the idea in working was that you would get a job at a good company and they would take care of you and you would dedicate your career to basically that company. And very few people moved around. It's completely different from the way it is now. I was in staffing for 5 or 6 years, and one of the greatest ironies and evolutions I saw right in front of my own eyes is it used to be when you looked at someone's resume, if they had less than 10 to 15 years at a company, you would ask them what went wrong. Because the norm was you would get somewhere, you'd get a good job, and you'd work there for a long time. And some companies even had pensions. Like my father's company offered a pension, so you would want to stay because they would take care of you and all of those kinds of things. And so by the time I was done with staffing, it had shifted to if you were somewhere more than 3 years, the belief was that you just weren't ambitious. You weren't looking to grow your career. It's not that you were lazy, but you were complacent and you weren't really willing. You weren't a mover and a shaker. Because people that were really going to achieve and accomplish things were people that were leaving, the statistic was every 2.6 years, they were changing jobs. And that's just the norm. That's just the way things work. But when he started working for this company, the rules were totally different. Everybody got a job and they stayed at that company and they worked there forever. So you had people with 15, 20, 25, 30 years of experience. And so he had worked at this company and he really liked it. And I could tell just by the way, I dealt with him every day and I went into the office with him sometimes when he had extra work to do and stuff like that. He really liked the company. They did a lot of nice things and treated him well, and he had friends there and everything else. And on his 25th anniversary, at this point, I was in college. So on his 25th anniversary, all of his friends and everything threw him a party. And this is right around the time in the 1990s when downsizing became a very popular thing in big companies. They realized a real quick way to make the red ink and the losses go away and cut expenses and make revenue look really good so the CEOs could get big bonuses was to cut labor force, because labor is one of the biggest expenses in any company. And so what they were doing is laying off people that were in their 50s and beyond, so that way they could bring in a bunch of new young people that were cheap, and it would cut the red ink right off the books. It would look like the company was very profitable, and so the CEOs could get their big bonuses. And so that became sort of the buzzword, and every company was doing it. My father's company was no different. So some of his friends got word that his boss, who worked in Philadelphia, was actually flying in on the day of his 25th anniversary with the company party to lay him off. And they intercepted him and reached him before he got on the plane and said, you can't do this. We're having his 25th anniversary party today. Like, you have to do this on a different day. So he waited a week or two, and then he came out and laid my father off after 25 years. So my father was devastated. He never saw it coming, and he always believed that, he was in the twilight of his career. He only had another, probably, 7 to 10 years to work, but he intended to stay there and work there, and he always did a good job, worked hard for the company. And from everything his reviews were always good, so there was no reason to believe he wouldn't be there forever. But the rules had changed right in the middle of the game. And so he was devastated by that. And I saw the impact that it had on him. And I saw not just financially, because he was laid off and out of work for a couple of years. My mother was a nurse, so we still had one income, but all the money that he was making was now gone. And it was very hard to get rehired. It was, the time wasn't good. Nobody was hiring experienced employees anymore. And he wasn't particularly skilled. He had a decent job with a decent skill set, but it wasn't anything so unique that he was going to be able to get hired right away. So it does have a happy ending of the story. He ended up getting rehired a few years later, and he finished his career. But the point is, it impacted me because I saw the impact it had on him. I saw his crushed trust and belief in this corporate system in corporate America. I saw the financial impact of struggling and not knowing if you were going to get another job and have enough money to pay the bills. And so it impacted me greatly because it made me believe the only way that I could do anything professionally was as an entrepreneur. I had already been a little entrepreneurial anyway, but that for me cemented my belief. And there wasn't a day or a moment. I don't remember consciously thinking, oh, I can never work for anybody. I just remember that being my belief. I didn't trust companies. I believed that any company that hired me, it was not going to be long-term anyway. So why would I give them my best if I knew that I wasn't going to get their best and they weren't going to be trustworthy? So I set out to start my own business, and that's essentially what I did for my career. Now, that said, in fairness, I did get one corporate job early on, and the company was amazing. And as I said to my wife at the time, after working there for a while, that company renewed my faith in the idea that I could get a job and potentially work for someone else and be happy doing it. If they didn't crash during the recession, during the dot-com crash, if they didn't, shrink and lay everybody off, I probably would still be working there. I could be, right? So I don't know whatever would have happened, but I had renewed belief. And even though I got laid off there, I didn't blame the company because it was a dot-com crash that caused it. It wasn't the company itself trying to make more money. And so I have very fond feelings about that one. But I had two completely diametrically opposed beliefs about working for other people, working for companies from that one experience and from those two experiences. And that affected me and my entire life's trajectory. And there are a lot of, smaller innocuous stories too. I remember hearing a story about a woman making Thanksgiving Day turkey. And she cut the top off of the turkey or cut the end off of the turkey and put it in the oven. And then her family came to the house. And her mom, I think, was one. And she said, I'm just curious, the turkey's really good, but why did you cut the end off of it? And she said, well, I thought that's what you do. Growing up, that's what we always did. And her mother said to her, that's because our oven was too small to fit the whole turkey. So she had cut the end of the turkey off to fit it in the oven. And this woman who was her daughter grew up believing that when you cook a turkey, you cut the end of it off and put it in the oven. So, something as simple as that, and it's not going to change your life, but a belief that's based in something that has no basis in fact. If she had just thought about it for a second, hey, it'll fit in the oven, why would you ever cut the end off the turkey? It doesn't make any sense. Another, personal story about this, we had an incident several years back where we were having a very large storm and there was a lot of wind. And we have some neighbors that have some pretty big trees. We don't have any in our yard. But my wife was getting very concerned about a couple of trees, and she said, these are going to hit the house if they fall, and she had noticed that it was getting really, really windy, but we always sort of just played it off and never really thought much about it. Well, as it happens, a large breeze blew, the tree cracked, and it fell, crashed on our house, and caused $25,000 worth of damage. Needless to say, from this day forward, that day forward, every time there's a windstorm, she's looking up at all the trees, assuming they're going to fall. The incidence of a falling tree in our lives is 1 over the course of 50 years. We've never been in an experience before where we've had any kind of damage from a falling tree. We've seen some around town and things like that, but it's affected her entire reality because now every time that there's any kind of a wind, she's already told me if we ever move, she will never buy a property with a tree that overhangs the house. So that has impacted her in a way that's very real from an experience. Another story about a woman that I met years ago. She came from an environment where she actually is financially secure. Even as a kid, she had a trust fund that her father had done something really influential and set up this trust fund for her. To her credit, she's extremely hardworking, very ambitious, never took any of that for granted. But we were talking one time and she mentioned the fact that, it came up that anybody who is poor or anybody who's broke or anyone who's struggling just isn't working hard enough. And I found that belief offensive and completely ridiculous because I know lots of people that have worked hard. I've been in a situation myself where I've been working really, really hard and struggling. And so she came from an experience where she has an unlimited safety net. So of course she would feel that way because no matter what she does, if it fails, she just goes off and tries the next thing. If what you're doing means the difference between keeping a roof over your family's head and putting food on the table or not, the stakes are a little bit different. And so again, her experience, the fact that she grew up in an environment where she doesn't understand anything other than financial security, caused her to have this false belief that anyone who isn't doing amazing is just lazy. And so, and then one last story that I think is really important that also pertains to business is, one of the guys that I know in my industry, I had reached out at one point because I was interested in partnering with some people, and I thought, we could do some things together. And we have a very good relationship. And he said to me, I'm not really interested in partnering because it always ends in disaster. I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, I know a lot of people that have gone into partnerships in our industry, and they're always unhappy. They always end up fighting and they don't get along. Well, I proceeded to go on and have a very fruitful partnership with another person for the next 4 or 5 years in a row. And I know a lot of other people who have done it too. So while his belief may have been true in some circumstances, it certainly wasn't the rule or the law, but it was based on his experience and what he was exposed to. So the bottom line with all of that is that some of the beliefs that we have may be completely irrational and not even make logical sense, like the turkey, but they impact us just the same. So if we just blindly go about our lives, we're at the mercy of our beliefs, and we just have to hope at that point that we have more powerful and positive beliefs than negative and limiting ones, because otherwise we're in trouble. But if we are aware of our beliefs and we question our beliefs, we test them, we challenge them, every time that we recognize that we have one, we can see what helps us and keep using those. And we can see what's holding us back and get rid of those. Anytime that we feel a certain way about something, we just have to ask ourselves, why do we feel that way? Does that help us? If it helps us, great. Then who cares why we feel that way, right? If it doesn't help us, then we can ask, does it make sense? Does the belief even make logical sense? Is there any empirical evidence? Is it true? Is it factual? Is it accurate? Is there anything that is documented, that is evidentiary, that can prove this? Or are there a lot of examples of people debunking this and making this, showing that this is completely irrational and doesn't make any sense? Because the more that we debunk our own limiting beliefs and reinforce our empowering beliefs, the better that we can perform and the greater that we can become. And that's really the key. So the takeaway here is that what we experience or are exposed to affects the way we see the world. For better or worse, and true or false, our beliefs that we develop through experience impact how we live, what we think we're capable of, and ultimately our life's trajectory and what we accomplish and become. If we're aware of this, we can use the empowering beliefs to our advantage and discard the limiting beliefs, and that will help us reach our full potential.